Washington state, where the US coronavirus outbreak began. They're not celebrating a lockdown that has successfully managed to keep the outbreak under control here, saving lives. Instead, thousands of protesters deliberately defied orders and packed together to rebel against what they're calling an attack on their civil liberties.
But it's been politicized. This is a tool now. This is a tool to keep us at home and on house arrest. I'm not on house arrest. I refuse. I walk out of my house now.
She's also defying a nationwide order from President Trump that maintains strict social distancing guidelines until the end of April.
Some governors have gone too far. Some of the things that happened are maybe not so appropriate.
Though in true Donald Trump style, he's now changing his message to appeal politically to Americans whose lives have been disrupted by the lockdown, urging democratic states like Michigan to liberate and tacitly encouraging citizens to break free.
People feel that way. You're allowed to protest. I mean, they feel that way. I watched the protest and they were all 6 feet apart. I mean, it was a very orderly group of people.
He clearly wasn't watching these protesters just inches apart in Indiana over the weekend, or here in California, another state whose actions have suppressed the infection rate. This woman used a wire hoop to enforce distance, but others seemed more concerned to hit the waves than flatten the curve. And as the total number of deaths soared past 40,000, some said the sunshine would see COVID off.
Our best defense is a healthy immune system, and I take care of my body. I eat the right food, I take vitamins, I drink the right water, vitamin D. So we have everything that we need. We don't need a vaccine.
Ironically, their protests could end up extending the lockdowns, a fact the governor of New York, the hardest hit state, was only too happy to emphasize yesterday.
We apexed, we plateaued, it's coming down the other side. That is good news. Okay, so we exhale. We can control the beast. Yes, but the beast is still alive. We did not kill the beast. And the beast can rise up again.
Donald Trump knows that too, but he also knows the economy is in deep trouble and his poll numbers are falling after an initial bump. And when this president feels pressure, he's not one to be silenced.
Well, now, Beth Cameron is Vice President for Global Biological Policy at the Nuclear Threat Institute. She was previously the Senior Director for Global Health Security and Biodefense on the White House National Security Council, a unit charged with preparing for what? A pandemic, which was disbanded by President Trump in 2018. She joins us now from Washington, D.C. Beth Cameron, thank you very much for joining us. Why was your unit cut?
Thanks for having me. The Pandemic Preparedness, or the Directorate for Global Health Security and Biodefense, as it was called, was cut in 2018. It was actually quite a surprise because I stood the directorate up at the end of 2017, at the end of 2016, and then I transitioned it into the Trump administration until the beginning of 2017, and there it remained for another year. When the new National Security Advisor, John Bolton, came in 2018, there was a reorganization that happened, and the directorate was dissolved.
Well, I mean, was this, another of, well, Obama set it up, so let's get rid of it?
So no one's quite sure because the directorate was maintained for a year. I actually think that it was more a function of wanting to make a smaller White House. And one of the big challenges there is, of course, the reason that the office was set up after the Ebola epidemic in 2014 was to make the point that a senior level team in the office of the head of state needed to be focused on pandemic threats all the time. And so this is really a lesson not only for the United States, but really for countries around the world, that pandemics are existential threats at the end of the day. And we're seeing right now why they're not only health risks, they're really risks to international peace, the global economy, and our security.
Well, now, on your watch, you led the drive against Ebola, which American leadership was not in question. And I obviously don't want to flatter you, but I mean, what's happened since? What's happened to the leadership of America?
So I think it's really important to recognize that there are a lot of excellent biological and public health experts still in the United States government. I think one of the key challenges that we're seeing right now in the United States, and I think we're not the only country seeing this, but we're certainly seeing it in the U.S., is that there hasn't been enough effort to get ahead of each challenge that we're facing. So we're constantly reacting rather than anticipating the challenges and coming up with a unified national plan. So, for example, when we look at testing, we know what the recipe is to be able to reopen society. We need to have many, many more tests. The anticipated number for America now is 500,000 tests per day. We need to have contact tracers, many more people trained to be able to go out and perform those basic functions. We know that we need to be able to maintain our hospital capability and isolate people. And we know that we need a stable supply line for personal protective equipment and other life-saving equipment. So the recipe is clear, but we're not yet able to bake the cake. And the reason for that is because we haven't been able to get a unified understanding of all of the barriers to be able to do the widespread testing necessary to ensure that we don't see a resurgence of cases after we reopen, which will basically land us right back to where we are now with the economy and social distancing, and we'll just be in this never-ending cycle.
Well, then, just briefly, what do you make of the president's plan to open up America, particularly as he keeps bellowing about it in democratic states, as if it's really all about the election?
I'm really concerned about what's been happening with the protests in America, as you were just playing those clips. And they're quite concerning because what they highlight is that there's a lack of clear communication from the top down, including the White House, but also including some of the leaders within our states about what exactly needs to happen. And importantly, we are the United States of America. Even though states have lots of authority about what to do, we're connected by interstate travel, we're connected by airports, and in fact, we're a globally connected world. So we really need much more unified planning before we can reopen. And in fact, I believe the United States should be spending a lot more time talking to our partners and allies around the world to learn lessons from some of the countries, including in Europe, that are starting to reopen.